All right, so this is Talk on Nancy. Now, I would like to claim credit for all this, but I didn't. I shamelessly stole all this stuff with permission and then hacked it and modified it to suit my evil, nefarious purposes. So that's cool. So what we're going to be doing is running through what Nancy's all about. And at its core, this is what it is. So complete with bullet points. You can tell this is not my slide deck because I hate bullet points. And I couldn't be bothered removing them in this particular case because it was too much effort. Not that I don't value you guys, but I don't value you enough to remove bullet points. Hang on, that's not right. Okay, so what we're talking about here is Nancy. So who's heard of Sinatra? Anyone? A couple of people. So lightweight framework for building web apps. Nancy was inspired by that. Obviously Nancy Sinatra, if you know where the meme comes from and all that sort of thing. So that's where the name came from. Very exciting. I'm sure that helps you in terms of understanding what it is. If you want to sing, you know, it's all good. But really it's about HTTP services, not just websites. So we're talking about, you know, RESTful web services, all those sort of things. Anything with an endpoint that we're hitting. The design principle behind it is pretty simple. Anything to do just to make it work, as simple as possible. A bit like what we were looking at there with Owen in terms of simple things, keeping it lightweight and so forth. Nancy should be one of those things that just works, out of the box, just works, nice and simple. We don't have to do much. We want it to be easy to customize. We want low level of ceremony and code over the top of it. We want to bang out some code and there it goes and it works. Straightforward, right? So let's have a look at the simplest thing that could work. The hello world of Nancy is in Visual Studio over here. All right, and I'm going to jump down to this. How's your font size? Is that okay? All good?
Yeah.
All right.
Mine's small.
I know, but I'm thinking of the old people at the back of the room.
No, I mean my routes.
All right. So here's what we do. We basically inherit from a thing called Nancy module, which is pulled in as a NuGet package. So we just grab NuGet, pull down Nancy from there. And then create a constructor. In that constructor, it's a simple get of whatever the route is. And then it's a Lambda statement, and all we're doing is returning hello world. So if I run this thing up, press F5, wait 30 seconds, was it? Is that how long I have to wait?
Something like that.
Yeah. And then, there we go. Very exciting, right? Awesome. Aren't you amazed?
At least I wrote my demo.
I wrote this. Parts of it.
You know the smackdown.
No, that's okay. We can do that later. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. Now, is that much of an app? Obviously not. There's not a lot to it. Now I could change that obviously and put in, you know, paragraph tags and all that sort of stuff, complete with typos, and stick a HTML on a body and whatever else I need around it.
There's no doc type.
There's no doc type, but you know what? I'm living on the edge, baby. Oh, it looks the same. Oh, isn't that awesome? I'll even do that. There you go. Ooh.
You're not closing this, you know.
I don't care.
So he fixes it up.
Browsers can handle my crap. Oh, look, there it is. Oh, so awesome. All right. Well, maybe not, actually. That was pretty useless. But that's as tough as it gets. I mean, that's what we talk about with super duper happy path, simplest thing that works. Single line of code, inherit from a subclass, and we're done. Now, that's okay, that's a start. But obviously we want to do a little bit more with this than just that. So let's talk about a few things. We'll go through some of this stuff. So Nancy has this module thing that we just inherited from. When you start up an app, it's going to go through, find all the modules, and it's going to use that to figure out all the various bits of code that can execute. Then it's going to run through those get collections and post collections and so forth, the arrays with the various routes, to figure out what URLs it's going to respond to and what it's not going to respond to, obviously. And you can put in routes for all sorts of things. So we've got the standard verbs, including options and patch, which I've never personally used in my entire life. But patch is useful for things like REST clients that are sending partial updates to resources versus full updates. So I can patch a resource and send just a small amount of context instead of the whole body. So if I was changing a person, for instance, and I had a whole lot of fields and I only wanted to update their name, I could send a patch with just the name in the JSON object, and that would be it. Head is dealt with automatically for get routes, so you don't have to worry about that, though you can override that and provide your own if you wish as well. So it's fairly straightforward. We're good with that. In terms of the routes as well, Aaron mentioned before regex. There's a bunch of things we can do in here. So here's a few examples. Meme, unicorns, postcode, regex, all that sort of stuff. We can throw in whatever we like, and it will do pattern matching. To figure out which route it's going to actually respond on, it's going to use a scoring mechanism. It's going to try and find the best match with the highest score. If it finds two routes with the same score, it picks the first one it finds, either in order of whatever reflection picked up when it went through and scanned everything, or in order of where it appears in the code. If there's two matches in the same module, for example. So a literal match, like the slash that we saw before, or slash home if we put one like that in, gets us a nice score of 10,000. Awesome. Any segment matches or regex matches is 1,000. Yay, very exciting. And if we do something like a greedy regex, where we're pulling in the entire rest of the string, for instance, that gets not much at all, 100. And it will balance that out to try and find things. You can also put on conditions. We can do custom routes. And unfortunately, async not available out of the box at the moment, at least in the released stable version. Async support for your routes is available in the current beta. So you can go and grab that and play with that. Let's have a look at that in terms of code.
So it will evaluate a request against every single route you've got to find.
Uh-huh. Pretty sure it does. To try and find the match.
Seems kind of slow.
Well, it's only got to scan it once and then puts it into memory in the dictionary, right? And then it's just a dictionary scan. Check it, check it, check it. So, how many routes do people define, by the way?
Hundreds.
In reality, how many?
You should see this HD access file I'm dealing with.
No, okay, apart from that one, if you were building an application from scratch, how many routes would you normally define? Anyone?
2 or 3.
Yeah. How many do you have in your MVC apps? Anyone got more than 10?
Final Web does.
You do? Yeah? Okay. That's pretty rare. So let's have a look at the menu. I'm going to jump over here to this project, and I'm going to set that as starter. And what we have in here, I have a module with some routes in it. So here's some examples of what I've got. Now you'll note here a few things. Firstly, I should just look at my screen. I can do a base path, and then all these here will be homed off that. So slash route slash whatever else. So route's just going to return a string. These routes here going to return some other bits and pieces, and you can see I've got in here, you know, wonderful regexes, conditionals with ticks and all sorts of stuff. So conditional is pretty straightforward. It's just put in your route and then put your condition after the fact. Okay? And then I've got a post method there, and it's taking the parameters. It's going to be able to work out binding. I've got patch, delete, put, options, whatever else. So let me run this up again. And I go to routes. So, okay, so nothing fancy there. I'm going to jump across to if I put it here. Okay, a little bit of link pad. Okay, and here I'm just going to do a post to the routes URL. And we're going to send some stuff, and we'll read the response back. So let's just hit the magic go button, and we've got our response. And what that's done behind the scenes is jumped in here, picked up the model, pulled object information out of the model, and gone from there. Shall I hit the F9 and do it again? Does anyone care? Or do you trust me? Trust me, it's all smoke and mirrors. I really did do this. It's not hard-coded data. Now you'll note in here there's a few conventions happening. By default, Nancy works off a bunch of conventions. So that whole model binding thing going on. If I'm sending through that as form encoded, how is that getting turned into an object at the other end? So it's doing it via that. We take in the parameters that come through, we bind it, and post model itself is fairly straightforward. Just a straight property bag, nothing fancy at all. And again, it's doing what you would expect, a little bit of reflection to figure out what's going on. And you'll see that model there is part of Nancy's convention to figure out what's going on. It'll also do things for views, which we'll talk about in a minute.
So what's if it doesn't find a match for that?
If it doesn't find a match?
Should it just silently fail or be a nice big funky error? So
Well, what's going to happen, you're going to end up with a null.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah, it's not going to throw exceptions on you if there's properties it doesn't match. You just end up with the standard default constructor, and it'll supply whatever it can supply. And then we can output the result. Okay? All right. Let's jump through a few other things. So they're route patterns. So there should be nothing that unfamiliar with it for that. This sort of thing here we see in MVC fairly regularly. Hard-coded we see very regularly. That kind of routine there, a little bit different. We don't see that one too often in MVC, but useful, right? Okay, what about responses? So at the moment I've returned a bunch of strings. Not very exciting. Obviously we don't want to return strings all the time. What Nancy wants is a response object. That's what it's after. It will implicitly try and convert certain objects to a response object. So we'll try and implicitly convert strings, integers, which will try and get converted to status codes by default, or a specific HTTP status code enum will get converted to a response object, and action objects, so we can send streams. All very exciting. Okay, and then any other object that's just of an object, we'll try and convert into a JSON object, and then put that into the stream, or whatever it happens to be, depending on content negotiation, which we'll look at in a minute. So back to our code, and I'll just go to the responses. There's this kind of things we're talking about. Okay, so again, fairly straightforward. I'll start that up again. So what am I looking for? Responses int. Responses. That will do. Sorry. 404, what do I do? Oh, slash int, duh. You knew that. Thanks for helping. I don't want to pass a parameter. Thank you for helping. Oh, look, that's better. Is that better? 401. Status code. 409. So you can see we're just setting whatever we want in here and bring it back. Response was the one I wanted before. So this one here, I'm actually also messing around with headers and so forth. I think I had this one in link pad. No, I didn't. Okay, so sorry. Alt tab till you go blind and have epilepsy. Anyone epileptic? No? Okay, that's a shame. Where am I? Response created, etc. I should have a header. Oh, just response. Richard, remember your stuff. Okay. No content. Awesome.
Want to turn on the network?
I probably do want to turn on the network because I'm not getting that. I want to go there, start capturing, and let's do that again. All right, and zoomy, just to make you really go nuts. There you go. So there's my 201, which is cool. I can go to my detailed view, and you will see down here somewhere, wherever it is. What's headers? Come here. Oh, gosh. Was it there?
Yeah. Fourth one.
Ah, there we go. Example.com 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got now full control. We can do whatever we like. And again, the whole concept behind this is to keep things as simple as possible. So you can see there's really not a huge amount of code going on here. Fairly straightforward. So now I can start building up a decent API. Why do I need to go to the overhead of running Web API on top of ASP.NET, on top of iOS, on top of everything else, if I can be using a simple OM-based server running this amount of code, and I've got myself a nice simple admin interface, web-based admin interface I could embed inside an application or a service or something else. Or I just run it without having to need iOS, just do self-hosted. So I could use Top Shelf, for instance. Anyone run across Top Shelf? Yep. Especially if you've done N-Service Bus, you should have run into that by now. Which is a nice way of just hosting DLLs and assemblies. And this we've got here in my Solution Explorer. I'll just stop again. Different ways of hosting. So I've got another application down here which I'll show later on, which is a self-hosted Nancy application. We'll get to that. All right, so jumping back. View engines. If we do want to return pages, it's probably useful not to have to embed and manually construct the string, probably, unless you like doing that sort of thing. But if you do, I've got some VB code I can show you later. What we want to do is we want to use a view engine and then pass something to it and do the binding, same as we do with MVC. So the good news is Razor is supported, no problem. But it also comes with its own view engine. So we can use that, or we can use one of the other things. Anyone played with Spark? No? From ages back?
Good old days. Yeah.
From the old days. Haven't used it since. In Django I've never even heard of, but I know it's supported. Anyone heard of that one? I don't know, it's like these crazy number of view engines floating around out there and no one uses them. So I feel sorry for the guys writing the projects, especially if that's you looking down the camera. But that's okay. So super simple view engine is pretty straightforward. It looks very similar to Razor. Again, nothing too fancy. In terms of locating views, it's a convention-based approach. It should be fairly similar to what you're used to from MVC. But of course you can change that convention yourself. So here's a view. And all we're doing here is returning something. Now you'll see I've got an object here called random model, which I'm going to create. Convention will be Nancy will take the fact that I've got a model object and it will try and locate a view for me based on taking the object name, stripping the word model off the end, obviously replacing it with a path that it's going to look for. It's going to look in views, and then the URL, which is going to be here. Sorry, views is that part. The view in that, and then the super simple view engine there. And all that's doing is doing a straight model binding. Nothing fancy at all. So again, really easy way to spin stuff up. So if I go views, there we go. Okay, straightforward. Building a web application is not too hard, right? Not really putting a lot of effort into this. Now, content negotiation. Who's done REST APIs? More than straight, boring, like CRUD APIs. Have we done content negotiation? Anyone? Oh, hello. Someone's whistling at me. Appreciate it. We can talk later. I'll give you my number. We have a lot of control over the way we do content negotiation. Out of the box, Nancy will do obviously JSON and form encoded data. But if we want to do our own encoding, we can supply a processor. So you can see we've got a few things there. By default, you get a view processor that will take your model and try and process that with a view engine. That's the super simple approach. Or we can send it back as JSON through the JSON processor or XML and so forth. If we wanted to send something else back, we want our own binary encoding, for instance, or whatever it happens to be. We just create our own processes, add them to Nancy in terms of the config, and then we've got ourselves a new content type. If we do our own custom content types, again, we create a processor for it and do our thing. No problem at all. So the way that works is that those processes will respond to, or to convert a response object. So here's a content negotiation sample. Let me just pin that for ease. And here's my negotiation module. So I've got, just get rid of that. Okay, so this is going to come in and it's going to, if I hit that URL, it's going to try and get something. It's going to give me back, depending on the content type, different results. So if I just ask for it by default, I'll get text with JSON. However, if I do it with a media range of application XML, then I'm going to give back a different type and different content. So I'm actually choosing the content as well based on the type that I've asked for. So if I jump over here again to this guy, here's my web request. I'll just shrink that down. So I'm going to make a web request, which is cool. I'm going to ask for JSON. I'll get a response. And as you would expect, what's up?
I was just saying if Jason was giving you a response.
Oh dear, oh dear. I apologise over there. I don't really know him. Have you got kids?
No.
You're working on it, right? Dad humour.
Well, you'd appreciate it.
I did. I just don't admit it in public. Okay, so there's my request. We've sent a request saying, please send me back an object in JSON format, or JSON. That's the French version. And then there it is. So I've got down the bottom text and default with JSON. If I just run the whole lot now, so I've got the same request, and then I'll do a second one with an indication that I accept XML instead, then I should see the XML content. And it would help if you don't highlight the code and you just do that instead. Okay, so we've got the JSON content being thrown out at the top, and then that whole god-awful mess is XML, as we're all used to, we know and loathe. And there it is. So I've got my default with XML and some additional data that I've decided to throw in there with it. So what that means now is I've got quite a bit of flexibility into how I put together my APIs. And again, the complexity here really isn't that high in terms of putting this API together. So I can now take, for example, conceptually, an application that's doing things and create an API for that embedded within the app itself. So I'm not creating a separate website with a web API running on it in iOS or anything else. I've just created a site in Nancy. I host it within my other application, and effectively it's a self-contained hosted API running over REST to do whatever I want to my system. Pretty cool. Nice concept. Okay, so they're the two things. All right, that's not all. There's more. Yes, there's more. There's even steak knives coming. What do I do with static content? Again, the convention approach applies, right? So let's say I'm doing pages and I've got views and I want to throw some pictures out and so forth. Simple approach, convention-based approach. By default, anything in a /content folder, out of the box, this is the convention, will be treated as static content. That's all I've got to do. So I put my pictures in there, I put my CSS and my JavaScript and whatever else. If I want to add extra folders, again, not hard. I just go to my conventions and I add another item into my config, my setup for Nancy when I start the app up, and I provide a bootstrapper. So bootstrapper looks like, wherever I put it, I don't know, there's one around somewhere. There it is. Here's a self-contained bootstrapper. This one here is running off AutoFac as well. So Nancy under the hood uses inversion of control, using an AutoFac. This one though does use tiny IOC out of the box, so you don't have to use AutoFac if you don't want to. You can just use the default one that's applied. And then you provide your own conventions and you register modules. And this one here we're using RavenDB and all good stuff. Okay, so there's a fair bit, as you can see, going on here. All right. Hosting. Good question. What can I run my Nancy application on? What would you like to run it on? Choice is yours, really. So ASP.NET. So I can run in IIS, ASP.NET, no problem. I can run in WCF if I really like hurting myself. Owen, as we talked about before. Self-hosted, I can even run the damn thing in Embraco. Why would I want to do that?
Why would you run?
I don't know, but it's available. Someone's done it, probably just to prove you can. And as you can see, if I want to run it on Linux, I can. It runs on, however you say that.
Nginx.
Huh?
Nginx.
Yeah, exactly. What he said. Which is obviously another web server. Who's got Ubuntu, by the way? So I'm running one up in Azure at the moment, Ubuntu VM and all that sort of stuff, and I've played around with this and it's actually kind of cool. It's turned off at the moment because I'm saving myself cents. Awesome. But again, it means I can run something like this and host it on multiple platforms. Don't really have to do that much to it, which is nice. All right, so let's have a look at this example app. Little thing called Notes. I know I'm going through things quickly. This is more a run through of Nancy than anything else. So this is self-hosted. We're using Top Shelf if we want to run it as a service. We've got RavenDB, an embedded version of it for storing data. And we separated the hosting part of it from the hosted app. So if we go to Studio here, you'll see I've got a few projects over here. I'll just zoom that in for you. So I've got Notes itself, which has a module, a couple of Nancy modules here. Then I've got the self-contained part, which is the hosting part. So that's actually the part that's spinning up and doing the bootstrapper. I've got, pardon me, the service here. And of course, you'll ask about testing later, so we'll get to that in a minute. How do I test this thing? So the actual app itself, the host service, is fairly straightforward. We come in, we have a start method. That should look fairly familiar. And then we spin up a new host. We have a base URI that we're going to be running off. Nothing fancy there at all. And we start it up. Stopping is very straightforward as well. So there's really nothing to this. I'm just going to set that as a startup project. I should probably stop running the other one first. That then has a reference to the Notes application here, which is not Lotus Notes. Don't get this wrong.
Better.
Oh, Lotus Notes is awesome. Who has to suffer through Notes at work? Does anyone? No. Awesome.
And employees.
Yeah. All right. So then I've got a module here that's just going through doing some of the IOC wire up, which is fine. And then I've got the module itself, which has a few things in here. So I've got some RavenDB stuff going on in terms of the document sessions to talk to the RavenDB database, which is fine. I've got a couple of default routes that we've set up, which are just going to be get notes in a few of those occasions and a post note to put things in there. Then I've got get notes. This is just an API, which is going to return an object. You'll see it takes a dynamic set of parameters so we can read those based on whatever's coming in. And I'm going to take whatever's passed in and make a query onto RavenDB to try and get some information. So get notes is just going to read everything. Get note is going to try and read a specific one. So it'll try and read a document session. If it has a problem, it's going to give me a bad request or a not found. So again, fairly straightforward, right? Not a difficult API. And then posting, we're going to bind whatever we do into whatever we receive into the create note model, which looks like that. I know, it's exciting. And then we're going to stick it into Raven, save our changes, and then create a response object. Being a REST API, it should give us a created, and it should give us a location for where that object is, or the resource is that we just created. Fair enough? So we'll do that, and the resource is going to be fairly straightforward. Hard-coded URL just because it's a demo app, and whatever the ID was that was created. All right. Our awesome user interface for this is over here again in LinkPad. So first up, I want to see what notes I currently have. Let's hit the magic button. All right, so nothing's happening at the moment because I've hit a breakpoint, have I?
Start right now, forget it.
Oh,
You didn't start it?
I didn't start the app.
Self-host.
It would help if I started. So there's my self-hosting, and now the service is running. So this is just a console app. So you could see this conceptually running as a service without a problem. I just have to install it, and away I go. Or this could be running inside any old application I've decided to create. So we've got that. Go back over here. Where did it go? Wrong spot. This one. All right, and we'll do that again. Okay. So I've come in here, I've got a document session. At the moment, there's not much going on. I'm just going to step through that. Fun. And we'll go back to here. And there's my object down the bottom. So I've got an ID, I've got this wonderful GUID. I know what that means, right? All good. And then I've got some content over here. So, yeah, we've got a created date, we've got the author was Bob. Everything seems to be working as we expected. So, posting. Again, form encoded in this case. I've got a note and an author, which is great. I'm going to say it's ASCII encoded. That's cool. I'll get my content, push it up, and I should get a request. And I'm going to just read that location back. A response, sorry. Okay, so it's come back and it said HTTP localhost and then a GUID. Because that's how we want all URLs, nice and human readable. All right, so then, of course, I go to IE or something else.
New security pattern.
Security through obfuscation. Put on F12, we'll go network, make sure we're tracking. Hey?
Is it Troy Hunt proof?
I doubt this very much in this particular case.
Good to know. He's passed a bunch through.
Woohoo! Something went horribly wrong. Why? Why did something go horribly wrong? Because I'm asking for it incorrectly. What I really need to be doing is going back and asking for it properly because it's an API.
Slash get. Slash get, slash Google.
I needed... No, it was right. Let's just check. Come here, you. All right, so there's my second object. It's definitely been created. So that's cool. Question is, why is my URL not working? Collective debugging, we love it. All right, so it's taking a string and trying to parse it. Okay, that's cool. Let's do that. And then it's going to load the document session, and it's going to go, cool, does note equal null, return note. And it's going to complain because, what did I tell you before? It's currently trying to find the view for this by default. Okay? Because all I did was give me a thing. If I look at my request here and look at my headers, what's it asked for? Text HTML. Okay? I don't have a view for it, so it doesn't know what to do. It's trying to find the view, it's having troubles finding it, so it then spits the dump. Because our API doesn't support that at the moment. We only support, given what I've coded, JSON and XML.
It's asking for XML.
Yeah, but because it can respond to HTML, it's trying to find the view. I need to actually turn that off explicitly. So I need to exclude that.
Content negotiation says
Content.
it should keep falling down until it matches any of it.
But I haven't got any of that set up. Because the content negotiation was in a different module where I was showing that.
So out of the box it doesn't do content negotiation for even XML.
Nope. Which is a bit of a pain. It's something to be aware of. Now we could change that obviously and just make the request again. So if I go back to, oh gosh, turn off the magnifier. Go back here and keep flicking around until you get sick. and I put in the grid here. Where's my grid? That one there. Well, I'll just pick that one. That'll do. Okay, copy that and go to here. Paste that, and now run it. There's my content. Okay? Single object, all paths, loading up, everything's fine. So, that's your very quick run through Nancy. Given it's coming up to 8 o'clock, I'll just run through some of this. So, as I said, there's bootstrappers. Nancy supports Tiny IOC out of the box, autofactor in there. You can use some of the older school stuff if you want. So, Windsor, structure map, Runthrough, possibly. I don't know if anyone's done it. Does anyone use that anymore?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. And that's cool. Testing. I did mention testing. So very quickly, the guys that built Nancy wanted to make it testable from the ground up. They built the whole thing using a TDD approach, which is cool. So I can do now full request response testing without needing to spin up a web server at all. I can actually get the encoded view coming back without needing to run IIS or IS Express in my unit test, which is really nice. Including content negotiation and so forth. And even in my responses, they've got some helpers that will do CSS3 type locators. And we'll just have a quick look at an example of a test for that. So here, as an example, if I do this, I'll get a 201 created from posting a node. So that'll go in, it'll create a post. I'm going to have a look. There's my request. Here's some values. And then I'm going to just check that the result's there. Or I can come back and check that I've got a locator location in the post response once I've done that, and I'll check the location and so forth. Really straightforward, no IIS running. So if I actually turn off my app here, Control C just to exit that thing. So nothing's running. I just go to Test Explorer and hit the magic run all button in a second. Once it's explored and discovered all the tests. So this is just XUnit. As you can see, I've got FAC there. And it builds it and runs the tests. That's where I talk for a second. And there we go. All good.
Is that just running in memory?
Running it.
So if you locked out a document storage?
This one here, the document one. F12, definition. That's what I do. Oh, there it is. I was looking at it. This one's actually going, this one's an integration test because it's Raven. But again, Raven, you can do stuff with that. All good?
When you run a unit test and you're invoking Nancy memory, is Nancy loading your modules in the same app domain as the test?
I have no idea. I haven't even looked. I haven't actually looked at that at all. Probably the key on this one to note is that there's a little bit behind the scenes this one's doing. So we've got just some stuff in here just setting up the RavenDB side of things, just so that's in there. That's really all there is, and there's this testing bootstrapper here, which is spinning up a few things. So basically doing that initialization of Nancy in memory. Remember that a whole thing, Nancy runs as part of your application. So really, a testing library is just another application as far as Nancy is concerned. It's another host. So what you're doing is you're running your website within your test run. So it's probably in the same as a result.
That would suggest it is.
Yeah. There we go. So I like it. I think it's kind of cool. If you want to install it, there's the packages. If you just go to NuGet and you look at, just search for Nancy, you'll find about 1,000,001 different add-ons and extensions and modules and stuff that you can include. Find the things that you like. Apart from that, nancyfx.org is the place to go for all your Nancy needs. If you go to nancysinatra.com, you'll find a very different site. I'm just saying, it's safe for work, it's okay. And that's about it. And I stole my code from there. So and then I did some stuff to it. That's cool. All right, so with that, I'm done. Questions?
What's the relationship between Nancy and Katana? Are they kind of, is Nancy the open source version of? What I mean is the relationship between them as to what they actually provide you.
So Katana is a hosting platform for web applications. Nancy runs on top of a hosting platform. So back here where I had the list of hosts, you could Katana, because it's Owen, would be one of the Owen hosts, for example.
So Katana gives you the building blocks to build something like Nancy?
Yeah. Right.
Lego blocks is
Yeah.
it's got handsome source going with it.
So you get to focus then on which parts do I want to build and how much overhead do I want. So basically look at this as you don't have to default yourself to MVC every time you go file a new web app. If you've got something simple to do, don't worry about MVC at all. Just a couple of API methods, or you want to provide something specific hosted in the application. A platform like this or a framework like this is really useful. So just put it in the toolkit, know that it's there and use it when you need it. Other questions? Wow, it was either very boring and very straightforward, or I've just been bamboozled with science and magic. I'm going for the second one. Jazz hands, that's what did it.
Is there a project template for Nancy?
Is there a project template for
So
Nancy?
can I create a new project? And Nancy is one that...
I think there's a
yeah, I
recent
think
thing.
there is, but you don't really need it. Just go NuGet, install Nancy, and then create a class library.
Okay.
And just away you go. There's not going to be that much that the Nancy project does. Have you looked at what's in there?
No.
I know there's
Lots of
one, but
different templates.
yeah.
They were doing some experiments on some things that make creating new project templates easier, and they were experimenting with Nancy and a few other open source projects.
They being the Visual Studio team or web team? Or?
Yeah, like Mads and
Okay,
Scott
so the
Hanselman.
ASP.NET team.
Yeah.
Yep. I really don't think you need a project template. It's just create a class library and off you go.
And did you write something special in the program.cs? Firing up Nancy or something? How did you choose?
Okay, let's do this very quickly. Is this okay if I do this? On your project? Empty web app? No? Let's just do this. Console? Let's put it somewhere. Let's not put it there, let's put it here.
Destroy your web project.
Whatever. Manage NuGet packages. Now, I won't be able to run this straight up because I need a host.
Yeah.
Because I didn't do it as an empty web project. So normally if I just wanted to do that, I'd do it as an empty web project. But if I search for Nancy, sheesh, what do I want? Do I want a Razor View engine? Do I want self-hosting, which I probably do? So let's do that and install. Okay, cool. That's done. Let's go add class Fred. Oops. I'm awesome. This is watch me type time, which is always bad. All right.
Do you want public yet?
Hey?
Do you want public yet?
No, I probably do want it. Yes, thank you. That's meant to be my constructor. You knew that. You were just testing me, right? Sheesh. I told you, don't watch me type. All right. So what's going to happen if I press F5 at this point?
We'll exit.
Yeah, not a hell of a lot, right? But, I mean, that's really all there is to it. So I'd have to go in here and I'd have to figure out what I want in terms of the self-hosting and set that up. But
There must be a one-liner or something.
self-hosting, you got to hit a bootstrapper and a few other things. I could probably grab it from the other app. But I'm not going to do it now just because we're perfect time, but it really is that straightforward. If I did this as a file, if I went back here and did file, new project this time, and I did web, and I did empty web app, and then again I did the add, I can click, added Nancy here, and I just do straight Nancy, that's it. Class 1, wow, that's amazing. Oh, for crying out loud. What am I missing?
What was the package that you got? Maybe you need a more specific
Did I just close Studio?
Yep.
Oh, you idiot. All right. I'll do it later. Well, you can do it later. It's very straightforward. If you go to nancyfx.org as well, this is why I don't type sideways. You know, it's kind of it. Apart from when Richard presses the wrong. And the documentation on it is decent enough. So there's a fair bit in there. Hosting with various things and so forth. So there's your web one, Katana, we were talking about before. That's it. Okay. All right, I will call that quits there if there's no more questions, and say thank you very much for everyone turning up tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Topic ideas for next month, if anyone's got one. I'm all ears. Otherwise, I'm making up stuff again, and you all have to suffer.
You can do one on MVVM cross. Have you done that before?
I don't know. Has anyone done MVVM cross? Anyone want to do a talk on that? Yeah, you're up. Okay, cool. See me after. And anyone else?
Async?
Async? Evils of async?
Sure.
Please do. Okay, oh, the other thing. Wednesday next week. I don't know if you saw it on the website. Just see Joel Bahari's in town. So we technically are hosting a night, co-hosting. So we're over at, up a few streets that way. It's on, I can't remember, it's on Hunter somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not far. So Wednesday next week, buy a ticket online at Eventbrite. The link's on the site. And hopefully we'll see you there as well if you get another leave pass from home. Which is cool. All right, thanks guys. We're done.